You know, when you meet someone and you're just like so inspired by what they do, what they create, what the vision they have for things, and then watching them, seeing them execute and follow through on these visions. That is the case with our guest today. We are sitting down with Leah Sarris. She has a whole line of credentials behind her name, but in short, she is a chef dietitian, also with her MBA. But in short, she is a chef dietitian with her MBA, and she's doing some really cool things. I love Leah's energy.
Yay Networks.
A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. I'm always inspired by the different career paths that people create for themselves, essentially taking the education and what might have been that formal training or formal education, and then just how creative some people can be and just in creating and building an entire pathway that wasn't there before and forging this new territory, not only for themselves, but for others to step into this space. And the person that I am with today, Leah Sarris, is exactly one of those people. She is a registered dietitian, also a trained chef. And as a chef RD, really the sky's the limit in terms of wellness, nutrition, food education. So we're going to talk today about her background, her experiences, what got her here, also the really cool things that she's been involved in, and whether, our listeners are, I think it's just cool to hear from a career space, the creativity and the innovation in that, no matter what focus or what area of focus it is. But also if you have someone who is interested in becoming a dietitian or a chef and maybe merging these two together could be a really good fit, I think it's super inspiring as well. So with that, welcome, Leah.
I'm so excited to be here. This is so fun. Thank you.
We also have a third guest we need to introduce.
The guest of the hour.
The guest of the hour is Lucky. Lucky is a little duckling that I found on the street last week. She had just hatched that day. She's super cute, and she's a neighborhood project to keep her healthy and safe until she's big enough to be released with the other ducks. Her family was nowhere to be found when she had just hatched, and so we've taken her in, and the neighbors are really raising her. I get visitation, so Leah and I have been playing with her. She just swam in the fountain.
When you asked me if I'd mind doing that when I got here, I said, "Are you kidding me? This is like the best day ever."
Best day ever. So Lucky is happiest when she is near us and hearing our voices, and so you'll hear some little duck murmurs in the background. But if she gets too loud, we may put her outside, but hopefully she can just hang with us. So with that, tell us, I'd asked you to be on this podcast because I think your career and you and I, our paths first crossed, I guess about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, whenever you had first moved to New Orleans. And at that time, I knew you as a chef. Mm-hmm. And you were starting the Tulane Culinary Medicine program, which we'll talk more about. And then the next that, and I just heard all these amazing things, Chef Leah, she's creating, it's an education, which Leah will share more, but teaching physicians about, the culinary training to be able to pass down to their patients. Mm-hmm. Then you did a really cool thing. You added to the knowledge base and you went through the dietetic internship to be a dietitian. Yep. So walk us through, I guess, where do you want to start let's talk about maybe the gold ring and that role, and then we can kind of go back it up and then go from there.
Sure. So I moved to New Orleans in 2012 from Providence, Rhode Island, where I had lived since 2001 approximately. So I was there for 11 years. And I moved here to start a new program in culinary medicine, which was a term that still a lot of people haven't heard. But back then, no one really knew that term.
Y'all were the first I'd ever heard of it.
Yeah. I didn't even know what it was. And they were like, hey, you want to come start a culinary medicine program? I was like, sure.
And when you think like culinary medicine,
Yep.
these are two words that are usually completely unrelated.
It's true.
Yeah. And to make it a thing now.
Exactly. And I came from the world of culinary nutrition. That's actually what my undergrad degree is in, my bachelor's degree. But
From Johnson and Wales?
From Johnson and Wales, yeah, in Rhode Island. I got an associate's in culinary arts and a bachelor's in culinary nutrition. So I was used to the term culinary nutrition, but culinary medicine was new. And there is a lot of overlap of the two terms. But culinary medicine is essentially about teaching future physicians and other people in the healthcare realm. So it could be nurses, we've taught pharmacists, dentists, really anyone that touches a patient in a way that affects their health, about nutrition through hands-on cooking classes so that they can feel better equipped to talk to their patients about how their diet is affecting their health and make positive changes to improve their health.
And this is so this is sort of like it's not a school that someone goes to. It's like classes that someone would do, you know, I guess in the evening or on weekends. It would be a series of classes that someone would go through this course to become equipped to do this. But the program didn't exist.
No.
You created it.
And it's evolved. No, it was from scratch. There was no kitchen. There was no space. I mean, I was first working out of coffee shops when I moved here and just kind of looking at a blank sheet of paper. Like,
and a big idea.
Yeah, and a big idea. Exactly.
So the idea was it, tell us where the idea started and, you know.
Yeah. So I was hired by the Dr. Tim Harlan, who was a physician at the medical school at Tulane, which this was part of. I was actually on faculty at the medical school by the time I left there. And it was actually a vision. It came from the dean, from the old dean of the medical school, who is not there any longer, but it came from a parent, actually, whose kid was in medical school. And they really talked about the need, and he heard them. And he said to Tim Harlan, who has a history in nutrition, he actually has multiple books around nutrition and medicine, and he had a podcast and was a website and was known in that realm. So he knew he was the right person to come to for that. And he's actually worked in restaurants and owned his own restaurants. So he's a chef in ways as well. So the dean came to Tim Harlan and asked him to start this program. And then they were looking for someone to actually be there day to day because he still was seeing patients and
the logistics of building the program and what does it operationally look like?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was doing, was the operations and actually working together to build the curriculum.
So it starts with the dean with this big idea. And I think that's also really cool that it was a parent of someone in med school who kind of, planted that seed of an idea. The dean listens to it, hears it, and then goes to Dr. Harlan, who is the perfect fit for this. Then they bring you in. It was just like the perfect marriage of people, brains, energy, passion, drive to pull this together. So it's literally a big idea, a blank piece of paper, a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And
a lot of coffee shops.
design and build out the commercial kitchen. You know, put together the lessons and like what this is going to look like and what the staffing is going to look like, what the educational models are going to look like. That had to have been, would you say that, I don't know, I would think that that's one of the most rewarding projects you've worked on in your career.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you start anything new like that, especially from a blank slate, it can be quite intimidating. And you don't know where to start. It can be overwhelming at times, certainly overwhelming. So yeah, I look back on it now and it's inspired me to be able to do hard things and know that I'll figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you like now you, of course, you see the success of it, and the program, we should say, is also used as a model for other programs around the country. It's very highly regarded, very, well-respected, successful. But back before that, do you remember if you had, like, were you nervous about taking that on or saying yes?
Nervous.
Yeah. Were you, because they were like looking to you to be like, yeah, we've got you in here now. Like they're turning to you with all the confidence to execute it. Like I would wonder if there was a little bit of like a, Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's something true to be said to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Especially teaching medical students and medical
Yeah.
professionals, they have this level of knowledge around medicine that obviously I didn't have.
Right.
So I had to learn a lot about how to
Right.
teach them and how their curriculum works. So
I think it's just, I like, because knowing you then, meeting you then, you always kind of lead with a confidence and also a friendliness that's also, it's very disarming. And so I think for the med students, that probably worked really well.
thank you.
But it also, you don't seem like the person who's going to feel nervous. So it makes me feel good that you did have that. Cause I think, feel a lot the same. When I started our nutrition program at the fitness center, of course, it's evolved so much over the 20 something years. But I remember being hired and the expectations they had, I had a feeling I had to fill this and it's been successful and I've exceeded that and things that we didn't even think possible we've done. But at the time I remember going, oh my gosh, like they would say, oh, we're so glad we finally have the expert that we brought in for this. And I had just finished my internship and I was like, oh my gosh, but it was exactly what you said. It was a little bit of a fake it till you make it, but we use that phrase, fake it till you make it, but we weren't faking it. I think
You're right.
that we would, if we didn't know something, and I know this was me and I have a feeling it was you, we would say, let me figure it out.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's not that we have a baseline knowledge, right?
We have a baseline knowledge.
A very good baseline knowledge. But then we could like I said, we could figure it out. We have lots of resources and we know how to tap into them.
And not being afraid to say, you know what, I need a little bit of time. Let me figure out. And then, but as we're bearing ourselves and learning more about whatever that is that we're being asked to do or figure out or whatever it is, then that becomes like another layer of our knowledge base. And so, I have so much respect for creating that. So back us up a bit. You had coming into that role, I think that's incredibly daunting to figure out what is the layout of a commercial kitchen going to be? What is the lesson plan going to be? How's the curriculum? You're teaching nutrition, you're teaching education, you're teaching culinary skills. You need it to flow. There's a lot there that would seem very overwhelming, but what you had done as a chef before had kind of prepared you for that.
It really had. It was a good fit for me.
You had consulted with some different restaurant groups.
Yeah. I came out of college. I worked in restaurants throughout my 4 years of college and before that. And then my first job was in a consulting firm. And I learned so much. It was a small consulting firm. Actually, I just saw my old boss. He was here for a conference this week. I'm still very close with him. And I was more in the research and development realm and restaurant consulting, but I learned a lot about operations and systematizing and got really good at a spreadsheet, which I still use to this day.
And you love them.
I love spreadsheets. I think we all need to learn a little bit more about spreadsheets.
You had opened 2 restaurants from the ground up.
I did, yeah. And I also developed, as I mentioned, for troubled restaurants who were having issues with things like consistency, would help develop standardized recipes, standardized processes so that they could get a consistent product and, help with food costs and training and all those other pieces. So I learned a lot just about organization and management and managing multiple projects and kind of being able to juggle multiple things, which I really found I liked and thrived in. I don't like doing the same thing day in and day out. So
because working with spreadsheets is one thing and loving spreadsheets, which is also not always the case with people, but then also things like developing the training manuals, developing training manuals and being in a spreadsheet, they're sort of the same brain space, but then training the staff, generating that enthusiasm. How are we going to present it to the community? What's the branding and marketing and the front facing going to look like? You also are really great at that. So it's sort of the detail behind the scenes, but then also kind of the public facing part.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'd say that was kind of the beginning of forming my career path because you said a lot of people tend to either be someone that likes to sit at more of a computer or be in the kitchen or like to be in front of people. And I've always kind of liked a little bit of everything. And I could go from the kitchen to developing recipes to being on the computer to training people. And I like that mix.
So having that really kind of prepared you for the experience with the culinary medicine program. Backing up even a step before that, while you were in school, you did an internship with a Michelin restaurant.
I did.
Which is also really cool.
Yeah, I moved to England for 5 months and worked with them at a Michelin-starred restaurant.
How
Did a
was
lot of
that?
dishes.
Was it really intense?
Um, it was. It was very intense. I learned a lot about food, obviously. I also learned about working for difficult people and, and sitting through hard things and sticking through it even when they're hard.
Keeping a neutral face if you got yelled at.
Yes, yes, and being humble and being able to take criticism and feedback. If you messed up, because I was still very new at that point. I had a lot to learn. I remember.
What did you mess up? Do you remember?
I remember one very particularly. I submerged a cast iron pan in a chef's sink and started scrubbing it like any other dish. I didn't know how to care for cast iron yet. And he was like, "What is wrong with you? That's not how you treat cast iron." Just like, I was so embarrassed. I just didn't, you don't know what you don't know.
To you, that's a basic.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like at the time, oh my gosh. What about a dish going out to a table? Was there anything that
I was, no, generally because they didn't allow me that level.
Did they let you
No,
that close to the customer, like what they're receiving?
Yeah, I was always working with someone, doing something where they were constantly checking my work. I was cutting a lot of vegetables, doing a lot of prep. I did get to work for a while in the baking and pastry kitchen, and I'd make bread every day for a while. So I learned a lot about like rolling dough. But
you would have like one job sort of in the far background.
Yeah. They didn't let me get to the customer.
You're not touching the actual plate, the plate set up as it was. Yeah.
No.
And that, that's part of it. As we're younger, it's just getting those. Did I tell you ever that I worked at a research lab at Pennington?
Oh yeah.
And it was in genetic research. And so it was like gene splicing and all this stuff that I was not familiar with, but I had gotten a student worker job and I was super excited about it. But there were several different errors that I made that were just because I didn't have the experience in that. Some were oversights of diluting these, very elaborate solutions that had spent days to create. And then I would like the water trickled so slow. So I'd start it and then I would turn to do something else. And then like next thing you know, I've like diluted it 10 times.
Oh no.
So then they were like, let's put her actually it was, it was a genetic research lab that used mice. And so I'm sorry for anybody who's going to be sensitive to the story. I'll say, I won't go into all the details, but they ended up having me work in the space actually with the mice because he was like, okay, you keep messing up these solutions or these things, like now we'll have you do this. And so it was an area that I knew nothing about. And they ended up, but when you're that young, and you're that green, you're working in a space that you're like the support staff to the support staff. And if you can just do good there and learn and like you kind of learn like what the culture is around there and it is, you have to just be humble. I mean, they put me in the back working with the mice because they were like, get her out of this space for right now. Let's put her back there. But I learned from that. And
exactly. I think there's value in those situations. I mean, I just said I did a lot of dishes and I did. There were days when we would be the dishwasher.
Oh, when you said you did a lot of dishes, I thought you meant you created a lot of dishes.
No, I literally was in a dish pit,
Yes.
And that's part of
that's what you do.
A restaurant, right? And that's an important part. And without a dishwasher, you can't function. And you really come to appreciate those people doing every job and the hard work that they do and the sweat and the labor they put in. And I think it's important. That's an important part to be successful. You can't just jump to the top.
You don't. The mice role, the lab role worked to the mice role, and then I ended up in a food technology, food analysis lab. And so one led to the next, which ended up being what my major and kind of my specialty was, is that the food science and technology. And so it's you put your time in.
Yep.
And you don't think, if you have the opportunity, you just do it for everything that it is. It gives us both some good stories, and it's again humbling, and you do have that level of appreciation. So coming back in, okay, so you go to Johnson and Wales, you have your culinary degree, you have the opportunity to work at the Michelin restaurant in England, starting the culinary medicine program. At what point there? That's when you had. To me, it seems like your career was like really rolling strong there. And then you said, hey, you decided to add the credential of a registered dietitian to it. How did that kind of come about?
Well, if we can back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
after I left, well, the consulting firm, because there were a few steps in between, I think, that really shaped my career path.
Let's talk.
Yeah. So in 2008, when the economy crashed, working for this small consulting firm, I was cut to half time. So it forced me to look for other jobs. So I did. And I started adjunct teaching at Johnson & Wales, a culinary nutrition class. And then I ended up getting another job working for a nonprofit. It was really my first step into the nonprofit world around school food and making school food healthier and doing a lot of outreach. And I also started working with a farm to school program with that. And that was really my first steps into teaching. And I think that was a pivotal point for me. So while getting cut down to half time, it's like one of those times when you're in your life when you're like, what am I going to do? You know, I had a meager salary, you know? So like
now it's half.
Yeah. So, you know, we come to these pivotal points that seem so terrible at first, but they end up being an opportunity to grow. And that's really when I found my love for teaching, through both teaching at Johnson & Wales and also through teaching around school food. So teaching kitchen staff and helping with procurement. And I also found love for agriculture. So after doing those 3 jobs for a few years, I actually decided that I liked more the path of nutrition education and culinary education. I felt that was more my calling, even though I very much valued and enjoyed my time at the consulting job. And that is when I actually quit that and I picked up a third job. So instead of, then I was working at Johnson & Wales. I was doing the healthier school program. And then the third job, as I started working on a farm, and I was an assistant farm manager. And I was actually considering going in that path of, you know, more agriculture and growing food. And I wanted to just see how I felt about it first. So for a year, I worked on a farm, and the hardest I've ever worked, the lowest pay I've ever had, but also the biggest payoff. You know, I got pretty buff, but I also got a lot of really great food throughout it, and learned a lot about the way our food grows and our food systems. But through all that, you know, for 5 years, I was working 3 jobs, and I got a great resume from it. I worked really hard, but I also got tired, and I was ready to focus on one job and give 100% to one area. And I think what's important, if I think about young people, this is one thing I often tell them. Almost all of my career has been from talking to people that I know and from connections. I can't think of any job beyond my early career that I just found a job online and applied. It was through my connections that I found them. So my opportunity at Tulane came from me talking with my boss at Johnson & Wales. And they had been in touch with them as a potential partner for the culinary medicine program at Tulane. And because I had just talked to her about my next career path, I was fresh on her mind. Right. And she brought it to me as I was teaching a class.
And at this point, you'd also really set yourself up for that because you'd been teaching the class at Johnson & Wales. You had the school system and that education.
That's exactly it.
And then also the agriculture. Like you had this like trio of experiences and skill sets that is very unusual, especially in a younger person, to have all of those things all in one person. Yeah.
Yeah. I was only, I was in my upper 20s at that point. So you're right. It was hard work, but it also made me have this unique skill set and well-equipped to run this program. So when I met Dr. Harlan, he was like, oh, wow, I've been looking for someone. You have such a unique resume. You're the perfect person to come help build this program. And that's what opened up the opportunity. But those years of teaching and doing outreach really gave me a passion for that. And so I felt equipped to grow this program.
So it sounds like you may have already had in your mind, even before starting the culinary medicine program, the dietitian route was sort of something there.
Yeah. And that was back to your original question. I had always intended to become a registered dietitian. I just thought the credentials were important.
Right.
And in those years of working so many jobs, it just kind of fell to the wayside. So when I came to Tulane running this big program, I just thought it was really important to get those credentials. I had done the undergrad program. I just needed to do the dietetic internship. And so I was very fortunate that the dietetic internship coordinator at Tulane, Marsha, she's the best. Yes. We love Marsha.
Marsha Fiacun.
She really helped me to be able to make it happen. And I did it over the course of a year while I was working full time. So, and Dr. Harlan was also very gracious and helpful and really pushed for me to do it as well and would allow me some flexibility in my schedule because I still had to do these rotations, sometimes 2 to 3 days a week. So, I found myself, I never knew I was like this, but apparently I just like to learn all the time. So, I got used to it. I hadn't done clinical nutrition really since college. So I had to relearn a lot. And I did a few classes at Delgado Community College, and I had to self-educate. I spent 2 years, I bought a textbook, and I spent 2 years just really studying clinical nutrition while I was doing my rotations. So it took me about 3 years to get through the dietetic internship and sit for the exam. And I want to make sure, I really wanted to pass the exam on the first try. So I was doing a lot of practice exams, and I said I wasn't going to go in until I was getting 80s on my practice exam. So, but it took me 3 years to get there. Yeah.
So not something you took lightly. It wasn't it was very.
Yeah, I had to be diligent and I had to work hard. I took my evenings and weekends. That was the only way I was going to be successful. But I knew it was important for me and for my career path. And I don't regret any of it because, being a dietitian is a lot, as you know, different than just having a bachelor's degree in nutrition. People come to you as an expert. It's like, I often explain a dietetic internship to people who don't quite understand. I was like, it's kind of like a residency to doctors.
Right.
You've gone through all this training, but then you have to go through residency and take your boards to say that you're competent and can talk to patients. And so I had to do that if I was going to be a known and respected person in this world of culinary medicine, culinary nutrition. I felt that was important.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you did. And you were at starting the culinary medicine program, that was in 2012. And you were there through about 2019?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I was there for 7 years.
And then we'll talk about the next space that you were, and you and I, our paths crossed in that role that we'll talk about next. And then the role that you're in now, I think that RD really comes into play a lot too. So it is also one of those things that even if you're not working in a space where you're counseling people or clients or patients, it's one thing that is a very strong skill set to bring that's going to elevate you above other candidates for a similar role. Before we leave the culinary medicine program conversation, was there anything there that you would say is like striking to share of either like a big mishap, misstep, something that you thought like life was over at that moment and things came through?
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, like any new program, I wouldn't say this is a personal misstep, but one of the biggest challenges, especially in the nonprofit or even education sector, is finding funding.
Yeah.
So through a lot of my career in that arena, sometimes you wouldn't know how you're going to pay for the next thing. So I'd say there were times when I felt like wasn't sure how we were going to keep going and keep doing, or how I was going to continue to get paid in this job. Right. How are we going to make this sustainable? How are we going to meet the budget? But we figured it out. We always figured it out somehow. So I can't think of one particular. There were a lot of challenges. I mean,
a lot of fires that were put out.
Yes. Especially like building a kitchen. It was constant challenges of building a kitchen. And especially in New Orleans, everything from, your plumbing, grease traps having issues, figuring out the hoods, which were a huge undertaking, getting termites, pests, always issue New Orleans problems. there's always going to be challenges, but I guess I never felt like this was the end.
Right.
Luckily.
Nothing felt like it was catastrophic.
No, maybe just because I've been through some hard times in the past. And I know even if it's catastrophic in that job and things end, there's always a next step, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to kill me.
Right. And then the fundraising, that really kind of really gave you, I would think, a good foundation for like what your next role was.
Yeah. After being there for 7 years and growing the program, and I had a, competent staff, I had been growing, and we had built this robust programming that, as you mentioned, is being utilized by other schools. I kind of just was ready to challenge myself again. And actually, the executive director at the New Orleans Culinary and Hospitality Institute, or NOCI, as it's known, came to me about a director of education role. And she had come to me a few months before the school opened, actually in 2018, about taking the role. And I ultimately decided against it. I wasn't ready to leave the Goldring Center yet. It was the Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine. I don't know if I ever said that full
I don't
name.
think we did. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I wasn't sure I was ready yet. So I actually ended up turning down the job. But she came back to me about a year later and asked me again. And I was like, actually, I think I'm ready now. So I did. I went to NOCI as the director of education. And there was a new startup nonprofit culinary school that opened up in downtown New Orleans, which is a big deal for the city. We don't have such a big culinary program here. We do have Delgado Community College, which has a culinary program. This one was a little different, really included the hospitality piece of it, this beautiful old building downtown. And they needed someone to kind of build the programming and curriculum from the ground up. And so I came in to take that role. And then 3 days after I started, the executive director she had already put in her notice, but she told us she was leaving. And she, for good reason, she got a great new position at Loyola as the COO and CFO. So, I mean, good for her. She had proven herself. But she had built this program. She had been working on it in the background for over 5 years, and she needed her next step. So,
but it was still a really new program.
It was very new. So it only opened in January 2019. I joined the team around May 2019, and that's when she gave her notice to all of us. So after some thinking, I ultimately decided I wanted to apply for that position. So they had a national search firm, and I went up against a lot of really good people. And ultimately, I was very fortunate that I got the job. And so I got the executive director role. So I started that in July. So after about 2 months of being there, and a lot of transition.
The place has only been open at this point about 7 months.
Yeah. It was still
brand
very
new program.
A lot. The reason that I was most excited about it is I felt well equipped to operationalize things, And I didn't have a director of operations at that time. And I did. I really, that's what I focused a lot on at first, was just streamlining and operationalizing everything, all the moving pieces. I mean, we didn't just have our curriculum for culinary arts and baking and pastry arts. We also had an event space, and we had education for the public. And so we had a lot of different pieces, and we have a restaurant on the first floor. So we had to figure out how to make that all work together. And so, I took that position around July 2019, and it was actually funny. They rushed it a little to tell me that I got the position because we had a hurricane coming toward us. And it's sad, I don't remember which hurricane it was, but there's like multiple every year, it feels like. And so we had to get the building ready, and we didn't have an executive director. And so they said,
congratulations.
Take it. Yeah, take the job. Now get the building ready for this hurricane. And at the time, World Central Kitchen had reached out to me also because they saw this potential for a hurricane strike, and they wanted to partner with us about doing some food. So after World Central Kitchen approached us, I can come back to that later, but it actually ended up being a very vital partnership. But that's kind of what forced me into the position more quickly. And
so you are providing meals for the public.
Yep. Which we ended up doing for a month after Hurricane Ida.
And then during COVID.
Well, yeah.
So you got 2019
2019
rush of that, and then
took
2020.
this role in July 2019, and then as we all know, in 2020, I was basically in that role for about 6 months
Right.
before COVID hit. So we had to completely
because there's no on-site culinary program for people at this moment.
Yeah. No.
There's no training.
Yeah, exactly.
Together in the same room. Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of our magic words around COVID for a lot of us was about pivoting. So there was a lot of pivoting. And we ended up partnering with multiple other organizations, Chef's Brigade, helping to lead it, and with a feeding program for people in New Orleans who were affected by COVID. It was actually a pilot from FEMA, and they gave a couple $1 million for multiple programs to, it was really actually quite unique. They paid restaurants that were struggling to make food, and they dropped it off at Enoki. We would receive it, check it, quality assurance, weigh it, make sure, you know, what they said they were going to deliver was delivered, organize it, and then send it off to get packaged at Revolution Foods. Revolution Foods typically does school food. So they also, you know, had to do that pivoting. They would portion it. And then delivery, NOLA, who was doing food delivery in New Orleans, would deliver it to people's houses. So people who were laid off, or who people who were sick or had to care for a loved one could get 3 meals a day.
And people who, a lot of times, children, when schools,
for their children,
schools were their main source of nourishment, you know.
We fed, get my numbers mixed up, over 1.5 million meals during that time. And it was a critical source of income for Enoki too. So I was very...
It's serving the community in a way that's incredibly rewarding. And it's keeping y'all afloat.
It was important in so many ways. And it really helped to develop these important relationships in the community, because we were so new. A lot of people still hadn't heard of us. So we had all these chefs coming to Enoki every day. We get to talk to them, and they got to learn about what we were doing. And it was just really important for us to do that. So...
It's interesting how it puts things in perspective, because when you think back to what some of those fires were that you were putting out as you were starting the Gold Ring Culinary Medicine, and it might be an issue with the grease trap or the hood, and you're like, oh, this is such a big source of frustration in this role. It pales in comparison to the world has shut down. You have a culinary training program that can't happen in the way that the model that it's designed for an indefinite period of time. And how do we make this sustainable? How do we serve the community? And then y'all also did similar with Hurricane Ida shortly after. So finding ways that, like, with that, I would think during that, your role as chef, your role as dietitian, they were taking the back seat more to your role in terms of like strategy, relationships.
Yeah. And well, I became very versed in fundraising. And I will tell you one thing that we haven't touched on yet, but I do think it's important. When I was at Tulane the last year, I had started a professional MBA program. And because I really wanted more of the business side. And I'm really glad I did that, because it paid off. While I was at Enoki, and actually through COVID, I finished this program. It was a 3-year program. And which, you know, of course, was another challenge, but I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently.
I have so much admiration for that, because you're in these roles that are incredibly challenging. And then you're like, and also I'm going to do 3 years to become a dietitian, 3 years for my MBA.
I think I just like to learn.
Yeah.
You know,
it's incredible.
And sometimes I'm like, what the heck am I doing during all of it? But I'm glad ultimately. But I did feel like some of my business training, I got to practice it. Obviously, it's never quite the same doing it in person as it is in school. You get a lot more doing it in person. But I did feel like at least I had some of the vernacular, some of the, you know, just I understood more about the financials. I felt stronger in that area than I had been before.
Yeah, there's phrases that can be used, and if you're not in that world, you have to do a quick Google search before you answer.
Exactly.
Something that I had asked you when you and I talked about it before, as we were kind of talking through our plan for this episode, is, you know, really, to me, I would think that each role that you've taken has pushed you out of that comfort zone, but each time it has been you saying, I'm ready for this challenge. I want to take it on because it's something that challenge energizes you. It's what brings you joy. It's what
Yeah.
thrills you. And you personally grow so much from each of these. And
Yep.
so that's something that's sort of kind of been the common theme along the way.
You're absolutely right. And I see this with a lot of people I care about. And I'm sure you all have experienced it too. I feel like people get paralyzed from fear of change and failure a lot. And I think we need to kind of just reconsider these as opportunities for growth and learning. And yeah, failure, there's going to be failures. I can think of many times. I can think of more at my time of Noki as an executive director. I mean, that was a big role
It's a
I took
big
on.
role.
And I messed up multiple times, and I learned from it. And I had a very like well-known, respected board, huge people in the New Orleans restaurant and culinary scene and business area.
It would be intimidating to
It
a
was
lot of people.
very intimidating. And I was intimidated. If I said I wasn't intimidated at times, I'd be lying. And I think that's okay. And that we need to embrace that. And I've always just said, I'm never going to do better and get new opportunities unless I am okay with failing sometimes. And we need to not, failure is an important part of growth. And I'm glad I failed. I'm glad I still fail, and that's okay. And I learn from it and I grow and I get better. And that's provides more opportunity for me. And the other thing I'll say is like, I've never had this exact thing I wanted to be or do in my career. And I've always been kind of fluid. We talked about this before. I've always said when people say, what do you want to be in 5 years or where do you want to go?
Your 5-year plan.
Yeah. I actually really hate that question. My answer has always been, I just want to be happy and content doing what I'm doing. And if I'm not, then I need to reevaluate where I'm at. And that's, you've seen me zigzag around in my career path. It's kind of created this unique resume, but it's also created these really cool job opportunities.
It's true because the 5-year question, I think if someone is in maybe something very traditional, they're in academia or they're in some sort of a management role and they see the next title as their next step or the next tier or the next tenure or whatever that is. Sometimes in some roles, there is where someone sees, because it's a very traditional trajectory. But you and I were saying at the end of that question for 5 years, what my answer is very similar to yours. I don't know where it'll be in 5 years because if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have had no idea that the things that I'm working on, whether it's personal things happening and especially with Eat Fit, the potential, I didn't even know that these things were something that could happen. And so for me to think that I know what's going to happen in 5 years, I have zero idea.
It's true.
It is not for lack of planning or it's not for lack of a strategic approach, but it's positioning ourselves to be open to that thing that presents itself.
That's exactly right.
And we don't even know what it's going to be.
Exactly. You don't know. Yeah. If you had to ask me if I was going to be here 5 years ago, no way.
When we have interns that, especially longer term interns, 6 months or a year, and we're talking about the different roles that they'll do, I will say to them, I don't even know what it's going to be. I know it's going to be X, Y, and Z. These things we know for sure. And then I'll say it like, I know there's going to be some really cool projects, but I have no idea what they're going to be. And it sounds like, like such a bad sales job, but it's exactly that. So going back to the role as executive director of Noki, like you were saying, it is a really big role. And one of the things that also I see about you is that you have a strength, you have a determination, you have continued to further your education, you have, in spite of having maybe a sense of intimidation, like you said, with a board that would intimidate almost all of us at times, and they're all very nice people, let's say that.
Yeah.
They're very nice people.
And they gave me a huge opportunity.
It's huge opportunity. They're very nice people. They're loving. They're lovely.
Yes.
It's also, I think, a lot of my intimidation, I think, and this might have been, I might be speaking for you too, but tell me if not, part of that intimidation is we have so much respect for them. You want to do a really good job and you don't want to let them down. That's the intimidation. It's not that they're not, that would be my fear.
You couldn't be more right. And, my board chair is T. Martin, who's one of the co-proprietors of Commander's Palace. If you've never met T, she is a rock star. Like, she lights up a room, she takes the stage. She's just, everyone wants to be around her. She's smart, she's passionate, and and she also has high standards. She does, which is great. This was Gnocchi was largely her vision. And working for T is very intimidating for but also she really took me under her wing and wanted me to be successful. And she is a woman that likes to empower other women. And I think, she really enjoys that, which thank God. I really appreciated that. Yeah.
So when we talk about intimidation, it's that you don't want to let that person
I did not
and those
want to
people,
let her down.
they have so much trust in you. And
yeah.
T, actually, we did an interview for this podcast. I'll link to the episode. So if y'all are hearing us rave about T, you can hear it. It was actually during COVID, and it was, how it was affecting the restaurant industry and all. And T is everything that Leah has described and more. She is that person that everyone wants to be around.
Yeah.
She energizes any situation that she's in. When we decided to do the first Eat Fit cookbook, I went to T and I said, "Hey, do you have any guidance?" And she said, "Let me be your advisory council." And she walked me through the whole process. She was very specific and kind of helped coach me through.
That's
and
awesome.
Was really integral. And because I had no idea, and to have her guidance and her support in that.
I just got to bring it full circle, because I know she was always such a fan of yours and Eat Fit. And she actually gifted me your last Eat Fit book for a gift one year. I think it was a Christmas gift or something.
Nice.
I know.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know.
Yes.
She's a big fan of yours.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
So going to that and kind of putting that, so when Leah says this is a big role and it's big, it's big pressures that you had in that role. I also think that all those things that I was saying about you, of your strength and your perseverance and your follow through, all of these things combined with, as a woman, having a very disarming exterior. You're very friendly. You're very quick to laugh. You can be, just assimilate right in there with whoever is in your space.
It's really nice of you. Thank you.
I would think that at times that has someone who doesn't know you could underestimate you or misinterpret maybe that niceness or that kindness for being soft.
Yeah.
And so I wonder about that in a role, in kind of a higher pressure role.
Yeah. I think there are times when you have a softer demeanor that people do underestimate you. And I don't think people often would realize what a big role I was playing in some of these jobs. But I guess that also goes back to I trying not to care so much about what other people think.
And also, how do I here's what their expectations are, and you're busting through those expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I had to prove myself quite a bit. But that made me stronger. And it also made me challenge myself, because I will say, I think there's always things we can work on with ourselves. And to your point of me being kind and disarming, I think there are times within my career when I've had to work on being a little tougher.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, while that worked to my advantage in being disarming quite a bit, sometimes I had to get a little tougher skin, especially in a more of a leadership role, to be able to, help things move forward or discipline or, do whatever those hard things you have to do when you have a whole staff underneath you.
Anytime we're putting ourselves out there, that skin has to get thicker. I mean,
you're absolutely right.
It's so, I think about, gosh, it was almost, 15, 20 years ago when I first had my first piece that I ever wrote went out into the newspaper. And I had so much anxiety when that morning I had gone for a jog, and this is back when everybody did get the actual printed newspaper and you could see it in driveway after driveway after driveway. Yep. And I had so much angst, and, and people have different opinions about things that, maybe you would write and you would get, the nasty emails or opinionated emails. And I remember very early on, my editor, who I just adore, I had two primary editors that I worked with during that time and loved them both and still close with them both. But the first said, you got to get thicker skin if you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I thought, I actually heard it and really worked on that.
Yeah.
And it's not just that, it's anytime we're putting ourselves in that leadership role or others, but letting it, to me, from, just observing you, it's you are energized by that, and you might realize, okay, there was some doubts, or there was some
Yeah.
people who maybe, but that motivated you and
Yeah.
drove you.
Yeah. And also just recognizing that you're never going to please everyone, to your
Right.
point, and I still have to remind myself that all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's hard to screw up. It's hard to mess up. It's hard when someone has a different opinion about what you did,
Right.
but you're never going to please everyone. And you just got to do your best and put your best foot forward.
And let's talk about now, present time. So you have a completely different, let's talk about the last or the current phase of where
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. So after tumultuous, about almost 4 years at Noki, and I say tumultuous,
Completely unexpected.
yeah, it wasn't because of Noki per se. It was
Right.
just because it was a
The
startup.
world.
Yeah, it was a startup nonprofit culinary school when a lot was thrown at us that wasn't expected. And I was just kind of tired throughout it all. And I just felt for my own mental health that I needed to move on. And so I put in like plenty advance notice and really tried to make the transition and search for a new executive director as easy as possible. And I still have a good relationship with them. So I'm happy about that. But first of all, I took some time off. And if you have the opportunity to do that, I highly recommend it. We don't all have the opportunity, but I did. I took it while I had it, and I took 2 months to travel. And I traveled around the US, and I walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain and Portugal. And it really just helps to kind of reset my head and process all the things we've been through the last few years. So that was important for me. I recommend it to anyone if you ever have the opportunity. It does take some planning, but you can probably do. Not everyone can do it. I recognize that, but if you ever have the opportunity to do it. And in the meantime, I started searching for a new career path, and back to those connections, I reached out to someone I'd worked with throughout the years. And I started in November at Wild Hive, which is a consulting and marketing firm. And we are remote, so we're all over the United States.
It's owned and run by registered dietitian.
Registered dietitian-led company. There's only 7 of us, and half of us are registered dietitians. So yeah, we have 3 registered dietitians in our group. But we really largely work for commodity boards, not only commodity boards, but they're the vast majority of
Which
our
is like the
customers.
avocado board,
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
walnut cancel.
Yeah,
council.
exactly. I mean, and it's taken some education for me too. You've probably seen commercials for like avocados from Mexico, or if you can remember back when we had TVs with more commercials, beef, it's what's for dinner.
Yeah.
Or an incredible edible egg.
Right.
But those are all commodity boards. So essentially the growers are all contributing to a central fee to help educate, to do research around their products, promote it. And so I really work in the intersection of agriculture, nutrition, and food. And my role is director of culinary marketing and education. So I get to use a lot of what I've been learning and learn a lot of new things, especially in the marketing realm and understanding commodity boards and how we work with commodity boards. It's all been pretty new to me. But I do a lot in the around education in the medical field. So it's still a lot of overlap. So for instance, I go to a conference. One of our commodity boards that we work with is the mango board. So I would teach doctors and dietitians and people in the healthcare realm all about mangoes, the different varieties, how to tell when they're ripe, how to cut them, because that can be kind of intimidating, right? Cutting a mango for people. We don't want that to be the reason you aren't enjoying mangoes or recommending them to your patients. Obviously, we talked about the nutrition and then cultural relevance, how mangoes are used throughout the world. You know, they learn it's the king of fruits, and it's actually the national fruit of many countries around the world. And then different recipes, doing hands-on around mangoes. So it's really fun, and I get to be in that education realm again, and I get to be supporting our agriculture, which is really important. And our growers really need someone who's actually worked on a farm.
It really ties in all of your, I would think that is as cool as the experience and like such a learning opportunities experience was as executive director. Of all the roles that you've had, you were the furthest removed from that touch point of education and really
nutrition.
Yeah. Like what that passion is. And so this sort of brings you back into that intersection of
You're right.
food, agriculture, nutrition, that culinary medicine space.
Yeah. And I knew I eventually wanted to get back in that realm. And I really took on the role at Noki to challenge myself and to really grow into more of the business and the business of running a business.
I'm not even going to ask, what do you think your next step is?
I know. Where do I see myself in 5 years?
And we're not even being coy. Some people are like, well, you never know. And like, they know exactly. No, the answer is like, we don't know. But I think that, hearing the choices you've made, hearing the decisions that you've made to also continue to further the education, get your MBA, become a registered dietitian on top of also already being a chef, taking on challenges not without being fearful, but in spite of being fearful, like not letting that cower you, but saying, okay, yeah, I do have hesitations or nervousness or, fears about this, but I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, the biggest thing is most things we can figure out. And most things, even if it feels like the end of the world right there in that moment, it's not.
It's not.
And
You'll
it can often be a door open to something else.
Yeah.
Any other things that you would share with someone who's listening, whether it's themselves, someone they know, whether it's about this professions plural, or just in general, because a lot of people, I feel like the world right now is sort of like this like impasse for a lot of people. And there is just a big transition and shift happening in these couple of years after COVID, where people did kind of rethink, what do I really want to do?
Yes.
And what does really matter?
Yes. There's always going to be hard work involved. I think we need to remember that to get far. And I'm not afraid to put in the hours and the time, and I'm not afraid to learn new things. And actually, as you were just saying that, that's actually what came to my mind, is the fact that I never stop learning, and I'm always trying to expand both on a personal level and some like going through more formal education. So personally, and I really respect you for this, Molly, because I've seen you speak. And, I do a lot of public speaking opportunities, and I have throughout my career kind of figuring it out as I go. But like, I'm doing a lot of reading, listening on how to be an even better public speaker. And that's something I think is important for me to put the time and energy into. And, I hear you, and I said that about you because I hear you do public speaking. You're really good at it. And I'm assuming you put time and energy into learning things about and how to do that.
That warms me that you said that. And I do.
Yeah.
I actually have a book on my nightstand that I'm currently reading. It's How to Tell a Story.
Oh, I love that. I'm reading one about something like the captivating public speakers. We have a similar nightstand book. So I'm doing that. Yeah, you got it. You are not just.
But that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, you're not automatically.
Yeah.
I think someone like you or I, yes, we're naturally outgoing and are comfortable in front of an audience, but that doesn't mean that you can't do things to be even better at it. So you got to constantly challenge yourself. I can be a better chef. I can be a better dietitian. I can be better at marketing. I can be better at public speaking. And I'm constantly challenging myself to put myself out there and learn about them. Then on a personal level, I really love wine, and I hope it carries over into my job someday. I'm actually doing sommelier training.
Of course.
I know. I just started. I did actually.
That was like a little peek into a window of what
I know. Who knows? Maybe 5 years from now. Yeah. I keep saying to my current job, I was like, let's get a wine client.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So I'm doing WSET level 2 training. I did a 20-hour certification that we started at Noki, and that really, it's something I had wanted to do. So it kind of just really started my path on this. So I'm always finding ways to continue learning. And whether it's just reading a book, library has lots of free resources that you can do. I've also been buying used books. So you don't need to spend money on it per se, or much money. Or if you find a class or something online, or if you want to take a more formal route, there's always experts or just YouTube University.
Right.
There's always experts and ways that we can learn. And don't be afraid to learn new things, and don't be stuck in your way because there's probably better ways of doing a lot that you've been doing too.
I love that. And not letting our fears hinder us.
Yes.
Paying attention to them, being aware of them. But a lot of times those things that bring that sense of fear can also be the exact things that energize us and that we're learning and growing, you know.
You're not going to grow without failure and without fear. And that's part of us becoming better people. So don't let that hold you back, really. It's hard. Yeah. It's tough pill to swallow when you mess up. And when you feel like you could have done better on something, but guess what? Next time you're going to do better.
And it happens over and over and over. We can see all of these examples. I also love, I can't say it any better than as you did. And I love that we had our little chirps in the background. It was sort of like
so
underscoring Leah's beautiful statement. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to link to several of the different things we talked about. I'm going to link to, I'll get with you separately and make sure we're putting all the different sources or some of the different organizations that we talked about that you've worked with over the years. We'll put links to these so that if someone, wants to learn more, just kind of see more of what we were talking about. And then I'll put the link to the interview with T. And then Leah, if there's other things that are important to you or things that we think would be good resources, we'll put the link to that in the show notes of the episode. But yeah, I really appreciate your time.
You too. And I just want to say, because you're always interviewing other people, it's like, you're killing it, Molly. I really respect you too. And I've really, since my time in New Orleans, like it's so cool to see the things you're doing and growing. And I think you're a really good role model for other dietitians and people in this realm. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for having me.
I'm tearing up. I really appreciate that. That feels really great because we put our heads down, we do what we do, and we do it because we're passionate. And so it's nice that also when people that we respect feel the same way.
Yeah,
So
it's nice to be recognized.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I love Leah's energy. So grateful for her taking the time, sitting down, and just kind of sharing the backstory. It's sort of like when we do a behind the brand for different products and things that are on shelves and kind of hearing the backstory of how they came to be. Sort of the same kind of a thing, sitting down with her and really, these really cool projects, these really big ideas that she helped to, bring to full fruition. It's just really cool to hear the backstory, how it happened, how she got to the places where she had the opportunities that she did, and then really has made the most of it. So I'll include the links that we talked about in the show notes of this episode, and always let me know what you think. If there's things that resonated with you with this episode, if there's other people who you think are just doing really cool things in the wellness space and you're like, Molly, you've got to talk to this person, reach out, let me know. I always want to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, head over to mollykimball.com. You can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.